So there we have it. The first test in the Greatest Rivalry series is in the bag. A big win for the All Blacks at Ellis Park, 33-16, and loads of talking points. It just goes to show how strong the Springboks have been over the last number of years, when the All Blacks winning is classed as a surprise. It's the Boks' first loss in 12 matches, and their first loss at home since August 2025. A big thing that's been such a strength in the Springboks game over the last number of years was completely missing at Ellis Park on Saturday. They didn't pull the trigger, but we'll come back to what went wrong for the Springboks a little later on. Fair play. How good was that performance from the All Blacks? Soaked up all that pressure in the first 60-65 minutes and then just cut loose at the end with their pace, their skill, their power, their handling ability. But it was just their clinical edge that was the big difference. 5 tries to 1, 0 handling errors in the opposition 22. Filled the line with 14, 15 players that made it so difficult for South Africa to get to edges and to get their star X-Factor players in the game. Rassie Erasmus said it himself, actually, that they surprised the Springboks with their tackle technique. They looked lots of rips, so they were winning the collision, or sort of soaking the collision up, but ripping the ball out, causing lots of handling errors from the Springboks. They were aggressive at the breakdown, counter-rucking and making it really difficult for Grant Williams. They were able, not so much competing on the ball, but just making absolutely every ruck an absolute fight for him to dig. And what that does, it causes the Springbok players, so when they're coming onto the ball, they're having to stutter and stop and start, rather than the ball being on a plate with nobody touching the ruck or nobody touching the people sealing the ruck off. And it just made the Springboks game look so average, which is something we have not said about the Springboks for a long time. So brilliant tactics, brilliantly executed attack. They used short side, they used pick and goes, they switched it up a little bit, they had pace, they got their best players into the game, and then the other side of the ball, they made every single ruck and every single breakdown a nightmare for Grant Williams, and just filled that line with 14, 15 players and just worked their socks off and didn't give the Springboks an inch. Will Jordan, what a player, what a test match try scorer. 53 in 58 matches is just an insane strike rate. I don't think, I'd love to know in the comments below, is he the most ruthless finisher of all time? If there's a word for me to sum up that All Black performance on Saturday, it would be clinical. Just brilliant every time they got in the 22. Understood their tactics, nullified the Springbok game, and fair play to Dave Rennie. I think it's 4 out of 5. I think he's won against South Africa when he's been coaching Australia as well. His first away trip to Ellis Park. So he clearly knows how to get a job done against the Springboks, and they were brilliant on Saturday. But if the word we used to describe that All Blacks performance was clinical, the Springboks performance was the complete and utter opposite. Yes, the scrum changed when the All Blacks made some front row replacements, which definitely had an effect on the game. But the area in which the game was won and lost for me was the efficiency in opposition 22. I think it was 12 visits each, or 12 or 13 visits each. The All Blacks scored 5 tries from their entries, 2.5 points per entry. And the Springboks scored 1 try. I think it was 0.6 points per entry, which is so unlike the Springboks. So when I think of the Springboks, the blueprint for their 22 attack, and it's the hardest part on the pitch to defend, but I think of this Springbok team and the Springbok teams that I played against is it's maul time, it's big forwards coming around the corner, and then it's complementing it with the ability to get their X-Factor backs in play, whether that's pace, power, footwork, but it's only when they've done the hard work with their forwards. And if you have a look at this animation here, this is the one time they got it really right on Saturday, ended up with Andre Esterhuizen scoring a try. So the play starts with a line out. First things first, go to a maul. Can you physically test it? Can you physically handle it if you're the defensive team? It sort of doesn't go exactly to plan. You can see Steph Toy and 1 or 2 forwards peel out, ball goes to ground, first carry, off 9, Peter Steph Toy. Next one, again, not perfect, but the ball comes out and Wilco Low, joined by Damien Dialandi, to sort of add a little bit of impetus and a bit of push from the outside. Round the corner, again off 9. Again, best number 8 in the world by some distance, round the corner. So now we come to the really crucial part of this, where Andre Esterhuizen actually scores the try. And it's really important that what they've done is they've worked it and they've been patient. They've gone 1 phase, 2 phase, 3 phases, off 9. Typical South African sort of mentality to win the collisions 1v1 in the 22. They then run this 12-13 player. Andre Esterhuizen at 12. I think it's Damian Willemsen who comes short, Sasha Feinberg out the back. But what's really important is you look at the two Springbok attackers forwards inside Esterhuizen. So the ball goes across them, and the effect it has on the All Blacks defenders who are inside Josh Morby. You've got two Springbok attackers, two All Black defenders. It just holds them, and it stops those two All Black defenders getting and helping Josh Morby out. It gives Andre Esterhuizen a 1v1 versus Josh Morby, where he's going to win the collision 9 times out of 10. But it also allows them to create and hold that 4v3, where if they play out the back, if the ball goes to Sasha Feinberg and Gunazulu, he's probably going to give another 2-on-1 to Colby to score on the outside. So a really, really clinical bit of play from South Africa, and the very few times or once in the game that they absolutely nailed it. After that, they looked disconnected. They looked like they wanted to score off every single phase. They looked like they were pulling the trigger too early, weren't working their forwards around the corner enough, couldn't hold on to the ball long enough. It looked disjointed, and it looked as if they wanted the ball into those wide channels at all times, and it just felt very un-South African in the 22. And I think when you play against South Africa, you cannot, when you're in the 22, it's the hardest place on the pitch to attack, because the defence can put 14, 15 numbers in the front line, and they don't have to worry as much about the kick space in behind, because teams don't really want to take that risk and kick the ball away. And also you've got guys who can just get on the ball, make the rucks absolute nuisances, an absolute mess of themselves. So it makes it really difficult. So all you're looking for in the 22 is 1v1s, or you keep patience until you shorten the defensive line, like South Africa did in that animation, to be able to score. There was loads of examples of South Africa running out of patience and looking to try and pull the trigger too early before they've done the hard work. This one at 35 minutes, you can see they've just won the ball aerially. The ball's then moved, shifted a couple of passes. Yes, the All Blacks are bringing some line speed, looking to try and turn them back, force an error. And that's exactly what the Springboks do, who are usually so good at just going through phases, winning collisions. Sasha Feinberg and Gunazulu goes for that sort of speculative crossfield bomb type of thing, kicks it out on the full. Jesse Creel can't do anything to prevent that going in. And it just felt as if that was like South Africa's mentality on the weekend: score off the first time they touch it, or create some X factor magic moment as often as they could. This is probably the best example to show it. They actually do this quite well. They actually take it back. The backs take an edge on, I think it's about 36, 37 minutes. So they get the ball to the far edge. They actually do a decent job. But in that ruck, you've got Esterhuizen, you've got Willemsen, you've got Deolandi, and you've got Colby standing out on the outside. You then come back and you look at the shape that they're trying to play. Now, you always have your 10s connected out the back, but they've called for this ball out the back. It all just looks a bit disjointed. They probably need 2 or 3 phases to allow their backs to regenerate and come on the far side and play and connect up with Sasha Feinberg and Gunazulu and the rest of the players. But what they do is they go out the back straight away, not connected, disjointed, skill execution issue, of course. But even if that ball goes to hand, they've got nothing to play to the outside, because all their backs are in that initial ruck. So it just felt like, on the weekend, very un-South African, running out of patience, looking to try and pull the trigger at every single moment. And it just looked as if they were forcing things. And that's why I think it looked a little bit disconnected and disjointed, was because they almost looked too eager. And the big thing in the 22 is, how long can you keep the ball? The longer you keep the ball as an attacking team, the more chance it is the opposition give away a penalty, or you shorten teams up, or you get 1v1s. Compare those examples to when they got it right on the animation. And if you're watching the match footage, go back and just look how simple they were. 3 carries off 9. They scored a try in the 22 from 4 passes. Pop to your forward, pop to your next forward, pop to your next forward, 9 to 12, try. And that's how you attack in the 22. That's how South Africa always attack in the 22. Yes, they've got X-Factor players, but you compare what they did in that animation and for Andre Esterhuizen's first try, compared to the other examples where they just didn't shorten the defence's lineup, speculative kick, sort of throwing the ball out the back too early, not winning enough collisions up front. And it was a really un-South African performance. But I'd bet my bottom dollar on them coming back stronger this week and analysing it and making sure that they put all those things right and carry a lot more in the 22 on Saturday. So just putting that Springbok wastefulness, I suppose, for want of a better word, into some numbers and some stats just to sort of contextualise it. They had 12 visits into the All Blacks 22. scoring just 1 try. 11 handling errors in the whole game. 5 of them came in the 22. And then 7 turnovers conceded in the 22. Also, they had only 28 phases in the 22 of the All Blacks on Saturday. Now, against Wales, Scotland, England, albeit not quite as good at teams as the All Blacks, they had 39, I think 40 in one of the games. So you can see, if you don't put as much pressure and you release pressure as much as what the Springboks did on the weekend through A, lots of good All Black work, but B, a lot of poor choices and lack of patience, you're going to give the All Blacks or the opposition, whoever you're playing, an into the game. And I'm actually not that fussed about the territory and possession stats, because generally the stat that matters is how clinical and how many times you convert. And in those Nations Championship games, I think certainly against Scotland, they had far less possession, far less territory, but they were so clinical. During the Nations Championships against England, Scotland and Wales, they averaged 3.5 points per visit. On Saturday, 0.6. So the other thing as well, I think like people have said, like South Africa just didn't have a plan B. And I actually really strongly disagree with that. I just don't think they did plan A very well. I think their plan A normally is physicality, simpleness, winning collisions, asking teams, can you handle the power that they've got, especially when you get into that 22 where it's so hard to defend. I just didn't think they did plan A particularly well on Saturday, which is maybe why they've gone back to maybe a little bit of experience for the big match in Cape Town this weekend, where Cobus Reinach comes in at 9. I know Grant Williams is struggling a bit with an injury, but certainly at 10, Handre Pollard coming back in. And the brilliant thing about when you're a veteran 10 is that I know this sounds strange, but you don't want the ball all the time. You're happy to sit back and let your forwards do the work. Happy to let Diolande do the work and carry, or Aronson come off the wing and work some magic. So I think that'll be really good for the Springboks, just to get back to a bit of basics. And I'd be surprised if they don't fix that and carry quite a bit more in that 22 with their big forwards and centres coming down the channel. To attack in the 22 is so difficult, simply because everyone's now worried about defending the front line, and everyone tends to give, when you're 10 metres, 15 metres, 5 metres, whatever it is from your goal line, there's an extra bit of effort going in, so they're contesting the breakdown a bit harder, or they're looking for a rip a little bit more, and you've got 14, 15 guys in the front line, so there's no space. So it's not like when you're playing on the halfway line or in your own half, especially with the 50-22 rules. So you've got probably both wingers who are dropped off. You've got a fullback out of the line. You've probably got a 9 covering the chip. So all of a sudden you're defending against 11 or 12 guys rather than 14, 15 in the 22. So it's a really difficult place to attack. But this Springbok team are back-to-back world champions, comfortably have been the best team in the world for a number of years now, and that's been a super strength of the Springboks. Saturday against the All Blacks, yes, due to some brilliant defence and soaking up from the All Blacks and breakdown work, but I think personally, because they didn't do plan A, which is winning collisions, 1 pass rugby in the 22, countering that with their centres coming down the channels and offering themselves up, is why the All Blacks recorded a brilliant victory at Ellis Park, and it should be an absolute belter in Cape Town on Saturday. I think it's really important to add in this video that the Springboks standards are very different to everybody else's team. They've lost 1 game against the second best team in the world, and it's like the end of the world has come. So they're used to being in these positions. Look, it's not catastrophic. Yes, it makes life a lot harder in the series, but they lost the opening test in the British and Irish Lions in 2021, lost the opening game in the Rugby World Cup 2019 to New Zealand, lost the opening game in the Rugby Championship last year. So, and then went on to win all those. So they won the Lions series, won the World Cup, won the Rugby Championship last year. So this team are not a great team for no reason. They know how to handle adversity. They know how to handle when the pressure comes on. And I think that's why, again, going back to it, I think there's a bit more experience coming back. Sia Khaleesi hopefully is going to be back fit for his experience. Pollard, Reinach, the likes. And I expect this team to respond really strongly. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure to subscribe to Biggar Thinking for more analysis videos on the biggest and best games in rugby.